So I met Ernie in March of 2014. He came into the hospital actually unconscious. When he arrived in the hospital, he again lost his pulse and was resuscitated by the ER doctors. We had then done what's called a CT angiogram, which is a vascular study of the blood vessels of the brain, and found that he had what's called an arteriovenous malformation in the back of the brain. So basically the arteriovenous malformation had ruptured, creating a large hemorrhage in the back of the brain that was pushing on the brainstem. He then stopped breathing and he arrested. When I saw him, he was basically worse than comatose in some ways because he was opening his eyes, but there was no response to the outside world. He had certain pathological movements that concerned me that he had damage to his brain related to lack of oxygen. So at that point, I was talking to the family about what to do. He had coded twice, and he had this large hemorrhage in the back of his brain. If we take him to the surgery and I put him face down to do the surgery, he could arrest again, and if he arrests in that position, it's almost impossible for us to fully resuscitate him. He could die. But if I don't take him to surgery and leave the blood clot where it is in the back of the brain, it's going to continue putting pressure on his brainstem, and he could have permanent damage if he didn't have it already. My recommendation to the family was that he's young enough that regardless of what we think has happened to him in terms of the amount of oxygen he's received to his brain, we have to do everything we can and see what ends up happening on the other side.
So I asked him, I said, if this was your son, what would you do? He said, I would do the surgery. That's the only hope. And so at that time I had said to Dr. Jabahari, I said, okay. I said, this is the deal. Ernie, right now, he's your son. Now go work on your son, Dr. Jabahari. That was tough.
And we opened the back of his head. I initially took out the blood clot, and then I resected the arteriovenous malformation. Basically, at that point, all of the stuff related to his brain was taken care of.
About 3 hours later, he comes back out. I could hear footsteps running down the stairs, and it was Dr. Jabahari. He says, I just want you to know Ernie made it out okay. We were able to fix it. He goes, now the fight starts.
And then he went to the ICU, and remarkably, he woke up.
When I woke up, I found out that there was tubes running all through my body. And I don't know, it was just painful.
He woke up slowly. It wasn't like it was a light went on and he was wide awake and he was back to normal. That's not how it worked. But he slowly started to recover one thing after another, and he started to be able to interact and talk and then walk. His balance was off, but then it got better. His cognition was slow, and then it got better. And we were watching this child, and the trajectory of his recovery looked like he was going to go back to normal. This is a child that I thought had irreversible brain damage from lack of oxygen, not from the hemorrhage, but from the fact that his heart stopped beating. And he was recovering like he had just had a minor procedure. Everything was coming back. I'd like to say that I was able to call this one. I wasn't. I told the family, let's do everything, assuming that he was going to have a very bad outcome. And I was wrong. And I'm glad I was. And I'm glad that we all agreed to be as aggressive as possible in that situation.